Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Aarna Sahu, host of Aarna's News, where on this podcast channel, I aim to eliminate the gender gap in the STEM fields by featuring inspiring female professionals and highlighting their stories and accomplishments to further encourage girls. On today's episode,
the regular, whatever the regular thing is and whatever you're doing, that never going to be 100% fit for that. And it's so tempting to try to fix what you think is wrong because we're sold that, and marketers like I used to be are always telling you, oh, you need to do this instead and then you'll be happy. And so we have all those messages coming at us, and you really have to stop and say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be everything for everyone. I'm going to be who I am, and that's going to make me happy, and then I can bring my best self.
hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Aarna Sahu, host of Aarna's News, where on this podcast channel, I aim to eliminate the gender gap in the STEM fields by featuring inspiring female professionals and highlighting their stories and accomplishments to further encourage girls. Today, on episode 98, I'm pleased to answer our guest, Jill Avey. She helps women leaders get promoted to the director and VP levels with the SisterSmart Leadership Programs. She does this by supporting her clients to develop their strengths, increase their influence, and improve team performance while navigating gender bias. She is inspired to help her clients find deep fulfillment in their careers, both personally and financially. Her approach is grounded in research, applied behavioral science, and her own personal experience as an executive. Learn more about women's leadership by listening to the Sister Smart Leadership podcast or following Jill on LinkedIn or YouTube. Thank you so much, Jill, for being here today. Before we dive into the questions, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here and talking to your audience.
Thank you so much. So, my first question for you is tell us a bit about your career path.
So, I come from a family of technical people. My dad was an engineer. My mom was in finance. My sister's a scientist. Now she works in tech as well. And so even though I'm fascinated by people, I still have this technical foundation. So I was always interested in the science of everything. And I worked in sales, marketing, product development. And then, of course, I brought that into market research. And I've used a lot of brain science to understand why people do what they do. So I've always been kind of a student of people. And that brought me into when I wanted to have a second career, I became a leadership coach, and now I help people become the best that they can be.
I love that. I love what you're doing right now. Like it's kind of transcended from your hobbies. You were always around STEM with your family and then you worked towards it and now you're helping other women succeed. I think that's super inspiring.
Thank you.
All right. So my question for you is what advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours? And do you have any tips to succeed?
So I love that question, especially with your audience being younger and really planning out what their career is looking like. And so whenever I'm talking to somebody early in their career, I like to encourage them to get to know yourself better, because this is really the foundation of everything that you'll do. And you'll be so much better if you're working off of your strengths and the things that you're naturally good at. And so really focusing on those areas rather than trying to fix weaknesses or be something for somebody else or be something that you think you should be. You want to always be kind of coming back to who you are and what's right for you as an individual.
Absolutely. And I love what you said there, play to your strengths because your identity kind of comprises of the things you value and the things you enjoy doing. And if you play to your strengths, that's kind of just going back to your identity and your values. So if you can incorporate that, in the workplace, at home, then you can definitely be who you truly are. And I think that is so important.
It really is. You can bring your best self to your work when you feel like you have that sense of belonging, when you're feeling true to yourself and being that authentic person that you know you are inside, as you're talking about.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people mistake this for trying to improve on your weaknesses because a lot of people spend time on trying to fix what they're lacking. But instead, if you play to your strengths, then you have, a bit of the offensive ground instead of playing defensively. So I think that is a very good thing to know.
The world is always going to be telling you what you're not. You've got social media, you've got teachers, you've got parents, you've got everybody, managers, and the regular, whatever the regular thing is and whatever you're doing, that you're never going to be 100% fit for that. And it's so tempting to try to fix what you think is wrong because we're sold that, and marketers like I used to be are always telling you, oh, you need to do this instead and then you'll be happy. And so we have all those messages coming at us, and you really have to stop and say, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna be everything for everyone. I'm gonna be who I am, and that's gonna make me happy, and then I can bring my best self.
And at the end of the day, it's only you who's going to advocate for yourself because, you're your sole cheerleader. So definitely advocate for yourself and play to your strengths.
Ah, you're so wise.
Thank you so much. So, my question for you is, what is a common myth about your profession that you want to debunk?
Well, am kind of thinking about this in the terms of a common myth that I hear a lot for women in STEM, and um, I work with women all the time in leadership, and they a lot of women will rise up to drop out, and they get frustrated because they might be the only woman on the senior leadership team, and they feel like they're not getting the support, and they feel like I can't make it in STEM, and so we lose a lot of women out of particularly tech fields, and I just wanna say, you can make it. Even if it's all men, you can be incredibly successful. It just takes the right toolkit and the right support system to be able to navigate that, and that's what I specialize in, so I know it can happen.
I love that. And, STEM and science is not really just confined to one specific gender. It's for everybody and for every person of color, every gender. And I think it's so important to know that because typically the media always portrays people who like STEM to be really nerdy, white guys. And it's definitely not that group of people. It can go across so many people, just that whatever people think on TV isn't always true. So there's always places for women to be in STEM, and there always will be. It's just that right now, media still portrays people in STEM to not cater to that group, but it's definitely opening for everybody.
And there's so many companies that are really embracing super diverse teams. I just in a couple of weeks it'll come out. I just recorded a podcast episode on my own podcast with a leader from Microsoft, Sumi Singh, and she's built an incredibly diverse um, workforce in her division. And so we talked about how she did that, and she really is embracing, collaborative skills and inclusiveness. And then she would advertise that out as that this is what my team is doing, and here's how we're performing because of it. And she, really believes that their products are so much stronger because of that diversity. So you've got companies that feel like this, and so go find those companies. There are also companies where it's just, all white guys that are, on the teams, and it's going to be really hard. You're going to be swimming upstream the whole time. And so being careful about, where you're choosing to put yourself can make a huge difference as well. And finding the crowd and the company that's really going to value what you're bringing is going to get you halfway there already.
Absolutely. And a team should have people of different perspectives and people of different backgrounds. So that's really how a product can really market to the right people. If you know your background and if you know who you're marketing to with different perspectives, that's all the merrier.
Yeah, exactly.
And my next question is, if you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
So I think one of the things that I would focus on the most is thinking about what colleges I'm applying to, getting through college in a really successful way, like what classes to take, what direction to go, what kind of company to work for as your first job out of school. These are all critical steps, that you would be going through, is really thinking about who can help me along the way, because there are so many people that will help guide, and yet we can think we have to figure it all out ourselves and be sure who to turn to. So just asking a lot of questions and being really open for feedback, and then making good on that feedback and telling people that you did it, because that's the full circle. Is when somebody gives you advice, tell them how it worked out for you and tell them that you tried it, because that will make them want to help you more. Everybody wants to help somebody that's gonna do good with that effort that they gave them. So it really can that can turn into mentors that, are really invested in, helping you for the long term versus just asking or answering a few questions, in that moment.
100% agreed. And I'm a student myself, so it's actually really hard to ask for help sometimes. Like, I always think that my questions might be a little too dumb to ask for some reason, which is totally a myth, but at the heat of the moment, that's what I always think. But it just kind of goes back to, okay, if I don't ask that question in class or if I don't ask for clarification, who's to say, like, I won't make that mistake again in the future? Or maybe there's like my friend who's struggling with the same concept, and if I can ask for help, maybe we both can get help. So it's a very important thing to ask for help and to just ask for feedback from people who are higher up than you because they've already done it before, and most of the time they wouldn't mind wanting to help you. And once you get that help, definitely garner a um like a relationship with them, being like, okay, with your feedback, I was able to do this, this, and this. And then from there, maybe you could get a mentor or you can have a really valuable connection.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's spot on.
And I think it's just like a big misunderstanding that a lot of students have, that people think it's annoying to ask for help. Like myself, I've always thought that way, like I said before, but I just really want to drill it down to people that you don't look, stupid or dumb if you ask for help. It's something that's super helpful for everyone, and just asking for help can go a long way.
Asking questions is the foundation of what a coach does. And so I'm trained in asking questions. And I wish that everybody was trained in that, from high school because it's really such a powerful thing. It's a great skill to have of, sometimes you just have to think about how am I asking the question? Because if you're not asking it the right way, you might not get the answer you're wanting and it might not be so helpful. So that can be the twist that you need to really make that question a lot more useful for you.
Absolutely. And I think it's a lot about practice makes perfect. Like I guess you can't really expect that your first question you ask someone is going to be like the perfect answer that you were hoping for. You kind of got to ask those questions a lot, play around with the prompts that you're asking. And just, as you slowly get better at asking for help, then you'll get better responses later on.
I love that. And you can even say, "I'm not even sure how to ask about this, but here's what I'm gonna go do, and what should I ask you?" And that can be a great way to start if you're not sure.
Absolutely. And this is a great segue to my next question, which is, what are the best resources or books that have helped you find your career path?
So I love to read kind of the popular books. Like there's always a few books in every year. That's what everybody is reading in the business world or in the, whatever your specialty is. But so in my specialty of leadership, it's people like Brene Brown and Simon Sinek and Adam Grant are kind of, some of my favorites. And so whenever one of them is, put something new out, it can really make a big impact in our whole society and our whole culture. There are always those books that make that kind of impact and those thought leaders. And so making sure that you're really up on those kinds of books are really important because that will help you to know what's latest and greatest in your career. And then the question that I go to next is, okay, your question was specifically on how you find your career. So that is the hard part is, okay, as a young person, how do I figure out what direction to go? And I think it's really helpful to read stories about people who have done jobs that you're interested in. There's so many people that have written memoirs and you can learn a lot about their life and their work through that kind of thing. As well, you can learn, technical information about it, but sometimes what we really need is to live a life in the day of that kind of job. Some people will maybe they become a software developer and they, work in that job for a few months and they realize, oh, this isn't anything like what I wanted to do. And then they jump to something else. And that's okay to do. But it's better if you can kind of put yourself in that person's shoes ahead of time and talk to, ideally to talk to some people that work in that kind of job. And if you ask enough people, back to our asking questions discussion, if you ask around, often, somebody young and, energetic and positive minded that's asking for help is, usually there's people who are willing to help you. And so ask around and you'd be amazed at who might know somebody who does that thing that you're interested in. And sometimes the funniest connections will come together. I met a really great connection when I was shoveling my driveway. You know, it's a snowy day, and this guy came walking by with his dog, and I found out through chatting with him that he owned an advertising agency, and you know, and I needed to meet somebody like that right then. And so, you know, these kinds of connections can happen even in the most unlikely circumstances. So the minute that you can get a chance to talk to somebody about what their job's really like and ask them day to day, what is it like? And how do you know, how do you feel? What are the things you do? What are the meetings like? What is the work itself like? You know, that kind of thing. And what kinds of cultures and companies are there? When you can find that kind of thing out, it's really helpful. So there's often a lot of resources in people and networking. And then there's often a lot of books that you can read to discover that. And as well, I would go to podcasts and even social media. You know, LinkedIn is a pretty powerful place where people talk about the work that they do, and there's somebody that's talking about just about anything. And so that can be a great place to learn more too.
Absolutely, and I love what you said there. And it's really cool how you were able to find, an advertising company just by, shoveling your driveway. That's really, really cool. And it just goes to show that you just have to be open at the moment and just open whenever because, some opportunities might come your way, but you've got to be receptive to get those. And that goes with, asking questions and, reading popular books because not only will it help yourself with the knowledge that you're consuming from these thought leaders, but if you're at conferences, if you're meeting new people, you can say like, "Hey, I just read so and so's book. Did you like this part?" Or if you haven't read this, here's what I learned. And it's really cool because you can show people that like you care about what these people are talking about and you're interested in self-development and self-improvement. And it really just goes to show that you can just make connections based off of this.
And I really believe that people want to help people who are interested in those things, you know, especially as a young person. Don't be afraid to talk to people who are way older than you because they're the ones that have all of this experience that you can draw from. And they, you know, in general, people really want to help.
Absolutely. And I think that is a really, really good note because I'd say because what I do for my podcast and for asking for help is I just like send messages to people like cold DM. And that's what I did with you, Jill, which was really, really nice because we're on the show together, but sometimes people don't reply back. Sometimes people ghost me, they read the message and they don't even respond or anything, which is pretty sad. But on the other side, I've gotten so much feedback and so many people who have said yes to me so, it's really exciting because right now we've just wrapped up episode 95 on my podcast. So that's like 95 women who've said yes to me over like the past few years just by sending a cold DM and just shooting a message that I didn't know if I was going to get a response back, but people are there who want to help you on the other side. You just have to reach out to them.
Exactly. You were such a great example of this.
Thank you so much. And my question for you is what do you think is a vital factor that shaped your career? What was your life before learning it, and what was your life after learning it?
So I'm thinking about this. One of the things I think that was the most important for me was I was really good at the technical thing that I did, which in my case was marketing, but I always worked on my leadership skills at the same time. And so early in your career, you're going to want to work on your technical skills more, but don't want to neglect the leadership skills. And so how I define the difference between the two of them is that leadership is how you're being when you're doing the work and your technical skills are actually doing the work. And so continuing to always evolve yourself as a human is really important, and learning how to communicate with others and interact with other people, how to build trust with other people, building really strong, healthy relationships is what's going to get you somewhere in your career. And so you'll work your way up technically, you know, maybe you'll get a little bit of management, you know, like you might get somebody reporting to you and then maybe a couple people, and you'll get stuck at that level if you don't work on your leadership skills, and you'll never lead more than a few people because you need the people skills to be able to move up the ladder. And we need more women in leadership roles. You know, that's why I do what I do. And so I think it's really important to always be working on leadership. And you can start that today. No matter what age you are, you can start that today because we're always leading ourselves. So we always have somebody to lead.
Absolutely. And I love what you said there because um I've noticed that in the classroom, even if someone is like the best genius of all time, like they know every single answer and everything, but they're not a good person to work with, 9 times out of 10, nobody really wants to work with them. Versus someone who, like, sure, they might not know everything, but they're receptive to learn. They like to talk to people, they're good at public speaking, and they can learn on the job. People want to work with them more. And it just goes to show that yes, your technical skills do play like a big role, your hard skills, but so do your soft skills because people want to be close to others who are kind, who are empathetic, who are like warm. And if you're not that warm of a person, then it might hinder you from making really good connections that can help you along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. You said that so well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for me, specifically, like I had a group project a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago. I'm in summer right now, and I worked with a couple of people who were really, really smart, but I could not talk to them. Like, if I had to message them on, Gmail or whatever, Discord, they would be really slow at responding, and whatever they would say would be really blunt. So, although they were really smart people and I admire them for that, it was really hard to just talk to them and work on our project, which caused me to kind of feel a little bit behind. So, um, I would like to say that soft skills or your leadership skills do go very, very well in your technical skills.
They really do. And everything's done in projects and everything's done in teams these days. There's very few jobs out there where you're not going to be needing those skills and you're not going to be interfacing with people. And so if you get that reputation of being difficult to deal with or a slacker because you're not responding or, picky about the things that you'll do and what you won't do and you're not helpful, those kinds of things. That's really hard to live down once you get that kind of reputation. And so it's really good, especially early in your career, to think about how can I serve? How can I serve this team? And what does this team need more than what do I need? And that can really set you apart and be that person that people can count on. And it pays
Absolutely.
off in really building good relationships.
Absolutely. And how can I be more dependable for people to
Mhm.
think, okay, maybe I should be the one who's on this job and I should be the one who should be able to do this for everybody, but at the same time, just work on your technical skills as well.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. And because we have some additional time, my question for you is, what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career path?
For me, I struggled with being sure that I was going in the right direction. And so I even went into marketing. I was in marketing for a couple of jobs before I went back and got my MBA. And when I went back to school, I studied finance. I took like 6 finance classes because I thought I wanted to switch to finance because I wanted to understand both sides of business. And I knew in marketing that I was not really understanding that whole other side of the building. And so I thought that this would be the way to fix things, and in school, I learned, like, I'm not a finance person, and I'm a marketer, and I was sitting in finance class number 6, and I was looking around, and I felt like Where's Waldo? It was like, "What's the thing here that doesn't fit?" And everybody was so different from me, and I realized I don't have to do finance to understand it. I've learned about it in these classes, and that's enough, and then I went back to all my marketing classes and felt I did better, and I felt better, and I understood where my home was, and so that's the part is really understanding, like, what's gonna be home for you, and understanding that the things that come easily to you, that you just automatically pick up, that's not accident. That's because that's where you're in your zone of brilliance. And I just thought that, everything would come that way for me. And then it wasn't until I took those finance classes and really struggled and had to work really hard at those that I understood I have a talent for marketing. And so that's why I belonged there. And that's why that was home for me. And so that's an important piece is really understanding that not everybody is as good at things as you are, and it's easy to take that for granted. I look at in my program, our clients do this thing called the Knowing Your Genius worksheet, and they pull together a whole bunch of different assessments and about their personality and their strengths and their motivations and all of this stuff. And I can tell you, no person's worksheet looks anything like another person's. And even though they may even work in the same field, they may have the same kinds of jobs, because we've got, some people in that are similar, their worksheets look nothing alike. And so you really are unique, and no one is exactly like you, with the same influences, the same skills, the same, there's a nature and the nurture part. And so we all have different ways that we've grown up, and what that's created for us. And so not taking it for granted that just because maybe you're in an engineering program, or maybe you're in a science program, and you're around a lot of people like you, don't assume that's not special, because it really is. And so I think that's something to think about, is surrounding yourself with people that can mirror to you what is special about you, because we don't always know, like, you live in this body all day, and you don't really always know yourself as well as we think we should or that we think we might. So it can really help to have other people give you feedback on what they see you being good at too. And so, your family members, your teachers, your colleagues can do that for you as well. So that's a piece that I think could really help get you off in the right direction.
Absolutely. And I love what you said there. You're in your zone of brilliance. I think that is an amazing motto, but it just goes to show that you should play to your strengths. Like what you did, you went to a couple of finance courses, not really expecting much, and then you realized that you didn't really like it. So you went out of your comfort zone and you experienced something new. And of course, if you're going to like something, that's amazing. But if you don't like it, that's okay because you tried something new and you realize that marketing was your home through that experience. That okay, I don't like finance, and it's okay if you don't like finance because you knew that marketing was something you enjoyed. I think that is really powerful because you went back to, your identity and your strengths and you did something that you enjoyed.
I also think there's another piece there, that after I took all those finance classes, it made me a different marketer. It made me a unique marketer, because I understood the dollars behind everything we were doing in a different way. And so taking risks and doing things out of your comfort zone, as you mentioned, is really important, I think, to developing a unique set of abilities that's attractive to employers and managers as you're going through your career. I think it's helpful to have outside influences that might be different from anything you've seen anybody do as well.
100% agreed. And knowledge is power. You might get knowledge from different places and they might help you later down the road.
And that's where innovation comes from, is by bringing disparate ideas together. And if we aren't reaching out and, interacting with people who are really different from us, or doing something that's, way out there for us, then, you can be losing a lot of potential for, coming up with new ideas.
Absolutely. And my last question for you is how do you continue to learn in order to stay on top of things within your role?
Well, as a coach, I am a big fan of coaching programs, because it's really great to be able to work with somebody who's walked the path before you. And so I have my own coach, I have a mentor coach that I work with, and I really believe in lifelong learning, and that, you should never stop learning, because that's what keeps you inspired, and it brings me a lot of joy to be learning new things, and I think it keeps expanding your world, which is really important.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jill, for being here today. Before we end off, do you have any last words to the audience?
I just really want to encourage people that are listening to this podcast to, pursue your dreams. And if you're thinking it, you can do it. And it wouldn't have popped into your head if you didn't have the ability to get there. Just figure out how you can get there and do it, because people achieve amazing things when they set their minds to it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jill, for being on this interview with me today. I absolutely enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a good time talking with you as well.
Thus, that concludes the episode for this week. If you want to know more about how I relate to these amazing topics, then stay tuned for upcoming episodes. A free way to support this show is by leaving it a 5-star rating and a review on the player you are listening to. Let me know what you enjoy about this podcast, as it's a chance to tell me what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it too. Once again, thank you for finding me, and I hope we stay in touch with each other. Zito, you're listening to Aarna Sahu, the host of Aarna's News. Toodles!